briefly. We'll just make sure everybody's cleared out from in the commons area. Candidates, feel free to come on up and take the stage to your assigned seat. We've already taken care of that. So yeah, reminder, Celeste, Jordan, Scott, Bruce, and then Quinn. All right, while they all take their seats, a couple of quick housekeeping things. First and foremost, I want to thank Woods Cross High School, so including anybody that works for Woods Cross High School. We appreciate the venue. We appreciate your willingness to host us and allow us to do this. And I am not sure if they are in the room. I know Yemi is, but Yemi right here is the Davis County Republican Party Chair. Please give a hand for Yemi. And Holly, I don't see where Holly's at from Tooele County. I know she was here earlier. She might be outside. Please give a hand for Holly and the fantastic job she does in Tooele. And Chris, please stand up from Salt Lake County, our Republican Party Chair, Chris Knoll.
We don't have any additional ones. I'm sorry about that.
So very much appreciate these three counties specifically. They worked in tandem with the state party. And also Seth Sunderland, who you met at the very beginning. I don't know if he's still, oh, there's Seth. Seth is the president of the Utah Republican Elephant Club, which is a fundraising auxiliary of the party, and very much appreciate his partnership. I also want to draw attention to Leslie. Leslie, if you don't mind putting your hand up, and David Kyle. These two did a lot of work on the logistics side to make sure that this worked. Andrew Young and his team did a lot of work on the technology side to make sure that all of you joining us remotely and in the future are able to watch these videos and see this stream. So thank you for all the work and sacrifice that has gone in to make this happen. Now, with that, we'll get right back into things. The only adjustment that we are having is not 2 minutes for closing speech or your closing remarks. It's 1 minute. And that's what occurred in the previous round of debates. That's the only change. So with that, we will get going.
All right. Candidates, we will begin with an opening statement. Each one of you will have 1 minute, and we will just go in order as you drew. So Celeste, we will start with you and then go down the line. There is. So right down here are timers. You will see a yellow card, which means you have 15 seconds left, and then the red means time is up. And also, I'm not sure if you were here when we announced this, but we will just cut you off at that time, as opposed to try to doing the math and taking out of the next answer. Okay. Yep.
Hi, I'm Celeste Malloy. I'm running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District in Utah, and I'm doing it for one reason. I want to represent you, the people who live in Utah's 2nd Congressional District. I'm not a politician. This is the first time I've ever run for office. I'm not wealthy, and I know what it's like to have to live on a budget. I know what it's like to make your paycheck stretch. I've lived in the district and worked in the district my entire adult life, and I think I have a lot in common with you, and I think I can do a good job representing you and the things you care about in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Hi, delegates. My name is Jordan Hess. I was born and raised in Davis Street in Centerville. I currently live in Washington County in the south end of the district. I know this district from north to south. I'm prepared to represent this district. I spent the first 7 years of my career in Washington, D.C., crafting innovative conservative policy for some of the greatest minds of our time. I worked for Senators Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and others. That is my background, that is my experience. I am a policy innovator. I'm ready to put my head down, get to work, and think innovatively about some of the biggest problems facing our country. It's going to take someone who has been there and done that and understands just how Congress has gotten way out of their role. I'm prepared to represent this district, like I said, from north to south, excited for this opportunity, and I hope that I can earn your vote. Thank you.
My name is Scott Reber. I live in St. George, Utah, in the district. Is it not working?
Yeah, you guys will find we've had a couple of mic issues, and just work with us if that occurs.
Like I was saying, my name is Scott Reber. I live in St. George, Utah, in our district. I'm a small business owner. With me and my wife, we work together to do real estate rehabilitation. So if I don't get this job, that's what I'll be doing. First off the bat, every one of us tonight, all of the candidates, we all have reasons why we are running. And every one of us, loves our country, and we all are very similar. One key difference between us, though, is our experience. And what we need is somebody who can hit the ground running, because there are a lot of stuff that's coming down the pike, and we need to know what we're doing. I am that candidate because of my experience in DC. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bruce Huff. First of all, I want to just thank the chairman of all three counties for putting this on such short notice. We are in this truncated experience, and I've been in a chairman's seat before as a two-term chairman of the state, and I respect the hard work that goes into this. Look, I'm in this race because I have 10 kids, 22 grandkids, and there's a $32 trillion debt in this country. It's unsustainable, it's ridiculous, and I'm not going to stand up here or anywhere and promise you we're going to get a balanced budget amendment. That's not going to happen until we have 60 votes in the Senate, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. But I can tell you this, as a businessman who's created thousands of jobs in this state, who has been able to create in an innovative way solutions to big problems, that I have the ability and the experience to go back to Washington and create coalitions to get things done. Thank you. My name is Bruce Huff. Appreciate your vote.
Hi, my name's Quinn Denning. I want to start off as well by thanking you guys for putting this together on such a short notice. I also want to thank each of you for being here. It is such an important function to be here. I also want to thank Congressman Chris Stewart. He's done a great job for us, and my heart goes out to him, and I and my family are praying for he and his family. The reason I'm running is I love the Constitution. We are sending people back there that do not know and understand the principles of the Constitution. That is what made us a great nation. We need to get back to those principles. We need to be focused on bills that follow the Constitution. We need to do those things that will allow us to get back to where we are, or where we were. I am your guy, Quinn Denning. Win with Quinn.
Thank you, candidates. This should be fixed now, Scott. So now we're going to get to the question portion. And as a reminder, each of these questions were the same questions asked to the previous group. So you're not getting any new questions. The one exception is there is going to be one round of questions where the question is specific to each of you as a candidate. And in that, you'll be the only one to answer that. Also, if you refer to anybody on stage by name in a negative manner or a contrasting manner, you would have a 30-second rebuttal time, the person who is mentioned. So with that, we'll go to the very first question. Moving down the list, we'll be starting with you, Jordan. And if elected to this position, each of you would be the most junior member of the United States House of Representatives. What prepares you to be effective on day one for the benefit of Utah's 2nd Congressional District?
That's a great question. My 7 years in Washington, D.C., both working in the United States Senate and across the street at the Heritage Foundation, where I have actually crafted conservative policy in an innovative way that solves our problems. A lot of people will show up on day one wondering where the bathroom is. I will show up on one day ready to roll up my sleeves, put my head down, and get to work to solve some of our biggest problems. I'm a coalition builder. I know how to work with people, but I've got a spine and a backbone. I am a principled conservative that is able to build coalitions and actually get work done, and I'm excited to do that in Washington, D.C., to go back to where I started my career and continue to be a champion for conservative policy in Congress.
Like Jordan, and like, hopefully this works, I don't know.
There's enough question. We'll give you this mic, and your time doesn't start till then.
So I too was back in DC, and it was there that I saw how much Congress was broken, and I saw how little Congress actually did their jobs. I've spoken to many of you delegates, and I've told you about how much I care about this country, and that if Congress isn't doing their jobs, they should not get a salary. Imagine if they did. Like, if they didn't get their money, I think a lot of work would start getting done. Now, I'm not saying that we should pass bad bills or anything like that, but I think holding their feet to the fire to actually make them do their jobs would make a big difference. And I think changing the way that Congress runs in general, I think every member should be an appropriator instead of just an average member, where people who were on the appropriations committees were very lucky, and so they were the ones who fundraised. And having that kind of power come down to the individual congressman makes all that difference.
Well, it sounds like some of us have actually spent a lot of time in DC, and I have too, but one of the differences is I spent time there as a businessman. And I helped craft legislation. I helped defeat legislation. I built coalitions. I've worked with both houses of Congress, and I've worked with those who have interests in making sure that we have good governance. I've been legislative as a city council person. I have been in business where I've had to build coalitions within not only my own industry, but across industries to get things done. And I've taken on the bureaucracy and the regulatory agencies, sued them, and won because of their overreach. They have no right to legislate, and Congress has to be accountable for making sure they're the legislators, they're the appropriators, and the agencies stay the heck out of that part of the business.
We need somebody that can stand tall back there. Everywhere I go, I'm automatically a leader. People look up to me. Not necessarily because I'm tall, but because I can't keep my mouth shut. I am always talking about things that are important. I love principles. I'm principle-based. It's important to focus on principles of the Constitution, like I said earlier. Those kinds of principles will make me a leader back there because I understand where we need to go because of the Constitution. To give you one example, the Constitution, it was written on 4 pages. Most of our bills that we have are 500 to 5,000 pages. That's a travesty. Our bills shouldn't be more than 10 pages. If we did that, it would make a huge difference. And that's what I would propose to do. Thank you.
The question is, what qualifies me to start on day one, halfway through a Congress as the most junior member of Congress? And I feel like that is maybe the most important question we'll be answering tonight. And the answer for me is simple. I've been there. I've been there for the last 4 years working with Congressman Stewart for you. I would walk in on day one. I know what it is you've been coming in and asking for help with. I have a dozen things I've been working on that you've already requested. I know what the people in the 2nd District are calling about, caring about, and asking for help with. And I would also know where the bathroom is on day one. I'd know what the bills are on day one. I would know what things you have already said you want help with and you want your congressman to be focusing on. And I could walk in day one, seamlessly pick those things back up and keep moving with them. And I think that's maybe the most important thing we should be talking about here today, is that someone's coming in mid-Congress and they've got to hit the ground running, and I could do that. Thank you.
All right, candidates, we're going to shift to some specific policy, and we'll start with the debt ceiling. It has already been mentioned, the debt approaching $32 trillion. And just a few weeks ago, Speaker McCarthy worked with a group and negotiated with the president on a compromise bill. It ended up passing. It pushes off the debt ceiling 2 years and incorporates some federal spending cuts in that as well. So my question to you, would you be a yay or nay vote on that bill, and explain that vote? Scott, we'll start with you, and just go ahead and grab this mic from the beginning.
I'll use this one? Okay.
I would be a nay vote. I think our country has gone way too far in terms of our debt and deficit spending. That alone undermines our national security. When 40% of our debt is owned by foreign nations, it's unacceptable. It makes it so that it weakens our dollar, causes inflation, and it ruins our national security. When we owe other countries money, that is bad for the United States and for our future. And that's why I would vote no on that.
I would have joined with our delegation. I would have voted yes, and here's why. Number one, we were able to get the president to the negotiating table when he said he would not. That was a win. Second, we were able to pass specific or get agreement on specific issues that were important to moving the needle in the right direction for this country. Now, was it this much or was it this much? It was closer to this much. So to say, hey, we shouldn't have voted for it because we didn't get all that we wanted, I'm never going to promise you that, because it doesn't work that way in Washington, D.C. It's incremental. It's an inch here. It's a game of inches. And if we're not willing to take the inch and then get the next inch and then the next inch, then we're fooling ourselves. We'll continue to spin our wheels, to grandstand, to make speeches about how it wasn't a good enough deal. But I would have voted yes for those reasons.
I would have voted nay on that bill for a lot of reasons. First, I don't know if they know what a budget is. You know, that concerns me. If, as a business owner, if I was to run my business like they run our country, I'd be out of business within a month. We've got to start using fiscal policy that's correct policy, that follows correct principles. Not this willy-nilly, let's spend more than we have. The other reason I would vote nay is that bill had so many other things in it that had nothing to do with the budget. We've got to start holding everybody there accountable to what's in a bill. That's one of the most important things that we should be doing, is stopping these bills that are so full of pork. Thank you.
I would have joined the Utah House delegation in voting yes on that bill. It's important to remember the difference between a debt ceiling and a budget. That was a debt ceiling bill. Debt is money that we already owe. Nations should pay their debts, and for Speaker McCarthy to have gotten the White House and the Senate to negotiate when he's got a 5-seat majority and the Democrats control both the Senate and the White House was a brilliant move, and I think it put us in a much more powerful position in the House for the rest of this Congress. So I think voting yes means for the rest of this Congress we can be effective as Republicans in the House, and that's why I would have joined Utah's entire House delegation in voting yes.
I would have voted no on that bill. I think we started the negotiations from a weak place. We knew this vote was coming 5 months in advance. We knew we were going to run out of money. I would have walked into Speaker McCarthy's office 5 months before this vote and said, these are my 3 non-negotiables. 1, we have to get spending down to pre-COVID levels. We have added $7 trillion to our debt just since COVID. Number 2, we need spending caps in place so that we don't continue to grow government year over year. And number 3, we have to get on the path to a balanced budget. That's not going to happen overnight, but some of the brightest economists in this country say that we can balance our budget over a 10-year window. We have to get on that path now, otherwise the debt is immoral that we're leaving to the next generation. We have to stop the status quo. But we have to mention where our non-negotiables are. Everything else on the table I'm willing to work with. But as long as McCarthy knows well in advance my non-negotiables, I think that we can start from a better place and get a better result.
Okay, we're going to stick on another policy question, this one in regards to the Respect for Marriage Act. That's something Congress passed late last year. Essentially, what it does is creates a statutory authority for same-sex and interracial marriage. Our delegation in the House, 3 voted yes, including Representative Stewart, Representative Owens voting present, and then our senators were split on that. Would you have voted for that bill, and why? Bruce, we start with you on this one.
For me, the primary question isn't even that bill. It's the idea of, can we protect religious liberty? And the intention in that bill was purportedly to do that. But I have to say that I probably would have voted with Mike Lee on this one. I think Mike actually had the right idea in further protections for religious liberty in that bill, and I think that they were a bit watered down. So my vote would have been no on that, not because I don't think the overarching purpose of the bill was fine, but because it didn't go far enough in protecting religious liberty.
I also would have voted no for exactly the same reason. It didn't protect religious liberty, but also this is a state issue. The federal government has no business talking about this issue. It's not in the Constitution. It's not something that we should be talking about there. It's definitely not a bill that we should have even considered, because it doesn't have anything to do with the powers granted to the federal government. That is a state issue that needs to be kept within the states. Thank you.
As the only person here who actually worked on that bill, I feel like I'm maybe the most qualified to talk about what it does, and I would have voted yes, and this is why. First of all, what the bill, it's called the Respect for Marriage Act because it says the federal government will respect whatever the states legislate regarding marriage, and it should be the states deciding that, and the federal government should be respecting marriages that are solemnized in the states. And it does have language in it to protect religious freedom and to recognize that people of conscience can disagree. That's an important thing for us to be acknowledging right now in the current political climate. And my grandpa taught me that you should always ask what's the alternative. And in this case, the alternative was the Equality Act. It had been introduced in the House twice, it passed the House once, and the Equality Act didn't have any protections for religious freedom in it. And the driving factor behind people supporting the Equality Act was gay marriage. So now gay marriage is respected in the states where it's legal, and the federal government will respect the state's decisions on that. Thanks.
Yeah, on this bill, I would not have supported. I don't feel like it went far enough protecting religious liberty. Your liberties, they leave with you as you leave your pew at church and leave those church doors. This bill focused on protecting institutions, but I believe that our rights go deeper than the level of the institution. Our rights, they go down to the individual level. When I was in the Senate, I helped draft the First Amendment Defense Act. What this did was it prevented the federal government from discriminating against an individual based on that individual's views concerning sex, sexuality, and marriage. I believe that individual liberties are important. Although we need to protect our churches, we also need to protect us as individual Americans, and that's why I would have come down where I would have come down on that bill. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. Very similarly, as the other candidates, I would have voted no. The First Amendment Defense Act is where I would have drawn the line. That was a bill that I had my members that I worked for co-sponsor, and also I felt that it drew the appropriate protections. Now, the compromise that was made, it does get us some victories, but it doesn't get us all the religious protections that we need. Our religious freedoms are under attack, and we need to make sure that those are protected.
Thank you. We're now going to move into the candidate-specific questions. So this one we're going to be starting with you, Quinn. Question is, what in your history prepares you to dive into the deep policy work needed if elected to go back to DC?
I think the fact that I'm an American, that I've studied the Constitution, that I've run my own business since I was 14 years old, I think that gives me plenty of experience to manage every responsibility that I would have in Congress. You know, as a small business owner, you've got to learn law, you've got to learn accounting, You've got to learn a little bit about almost every facet of your business so that you can run it properly. All of that experience will give me the necessary tools to read through bills. I can read a bill and understand what it says. Those are important things, to be able to read and understand what you're reading. I think all those things give me the ability to serve you and do a very good job. Thank you.
Celeste, the next question comes to you. After spending so many years in Washington, D.C., how can delegates be confident that the city and the power there haven't changed you?
That's a great question. It's a fair question. I've spent 4 years there, and the whole time I've been there, I've been working for Utah's 2nd Congressional District. I've spent a lot of time here on the ground, and I've been working with all of you. So I think the delegates are already prepared to know that it hasn't changed me because they've spent time with me and know that I'm the same person. I still care about the issues in Utah, and I still want to work and be helpful to the people who are here on the ground.
Jordan, you have supported the new state flag. As a divisive issue among delegates, how does this prepare or hinder your ability to represent the district where there are multiple disagreements?
What's interesting is I haven't received any delegate questions about this. I once said something positive about the flag, and what I said is, from my view in Washington City, I looked up to Pine Valley Mountain, and I saw the red rocks of the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve. I saw the white-capped mountain, and I saw the blue sky. And I said, the new flag reminds me of my view from my home in Washington City. But what I also did was, when the legislature passed the bill, I decided it was important for the voters to have a say. So I signed the referendum packet at my county convention in Washington County, and I also proposed an alternative compromise flag that would have preserved the state seal. I did that together with our party chairman, Carson Jorgensen. That compromise was rejected, but I signed the referendum. I felt importantly that the people in the state of Utah should have had a say in that. And so, although I said that I liked the flag because it reminded me of home, I also agree that the people should have had a say in that decision.
Scott, next question. Please provide specifics. Oh, no, sorry, I just didn't want to start the question if you weren't ready. Please provide specifics of what you have done to help the Utah Republican Party and support the caucus convention system.
Well, for starts, I am a former state delegate and county delegate. I have been active since I was a little boy living in Utah with my mom, who was an active secretary for the county party. And she made me go out and knock doors and talk to people and raise awareness about candidates and support those who were constitutional conservatives. Those kinds of activities I have done most of my life, except when I was in DC. There I became a Virginian for a short time, and there I was active there in the party as well. I am always active and plan to still be there in the future for Utah, for you.
Thank you, Bruce. As a longtime party leader, why did you decide to also gather signatures rather than just going through the convention process?
Fair question. As you know, this is a truncated process. The state legislature passed new rules after the Jason Chaffetz's resignation. The process today says that if you go to the convention, only one person is allowed to come out of convention. That's different than our party rules. We like to send out 2 people unless you get 60%. And when I was chairman, by the way, it was 70%. So here's the thing. If no one gathered signatures, there wouldn't be a primary. You would have no choice. The people would have no choice to select a candidate. So with 2 weeks and candidates who have run for office over the last 2 years statewide, for me, this was the only alternative to make sure that the people had a choice to elect someone to Congress with my qualifications. Thank you.
All right, candidates, we're going to shift now to the 2024 field, specifically those seeking the Republican nomination for president. Like this race, that is attracting a lot of attention. It is a wide field. So my question to you is, one, is there a candidate that you will say right now you are going to support? And if you are undecided, talk to us about the top 2 or 3 candidates in your mind. For this one, we begin with Celeste.
I think it's premature to be answering this question. I don't think it's the role of your federal representative to tell you who you should be voting for president. Just like I'm standing here in front of you answering questions because you're delegates and it's your job to choose the nominee, I think it's your job to choose the presidential nominee. And I think it's my job to support whoever the nominee is. The field hasn't even fully developed yet. I don't know who's going to be on the ballot, but whoever it is, whoever the voters choose, that's who I'm going to be supporting. And I don't even think it's appropriate right now for me to be telling the delegates who I think they should be supporting. So I'm gonna sidestep this one and just promise that I will support the nominee.
You know, I sure wish that President Trump were our president right now, because he's a heck of a lot better than the guy we've got in the White House. That being said, I supported our president. I voted for our president. He was the far better option. I also am appreciative of the work that Governor Ron DeSantis has done in the state of Florida. My parents, actually, longtime Davis County residents, retired in Florida. They love the reforms that he has been able to enact in their state, and they now call themselves the Free State of Florida. So I would say that those are probably my top candidates right now, but I too will get behind whoever our Republican nominee is, because our policies, our platform, the things that we believe in as Republicans are a whole heck of a lot better than what the other side has to offer. I'm a Republican. I've given my service to the Utah Republican Party as the vice chairman of the party. I've always been a champion for conservative policies. So in so much that a candidate will align with our platform and our policies of freedom and individual liberty, I will get behind that candidate.
This is a tough one. I think Trump, we of course, like Jordan said, this is something that I wish he was our president. Things were so much better when we could call up the president when we were working with him and get answers. Now, right now, it's been really tough, but if you look at the current field of candidates, Ron DeSantis is somebody that I've worked with. I know he's a true conservative, and he's somebody that I definitely am looking at. The other one is Tim Scott. He's a solid conservative out of South Carolina. We worked with his office when I worked in the Senate. So I've worked in both the House and the Senate, and I've seen how both of them have been contributing to our party. And thirdly, I think Vivek is a really good choice as well. He has a very tricky name, but I really like what he's doing. He's an outsider who likes to change things. He's well-spoken, and he gets things done just like he did in the business sector. And those are my choices.
I'm delighted to be a Republican, because guess what? We've got a deep bench. I look at that field and I go, wow, that person could be president, that person could be president, that person could be president, that person could be president. And then I look over at the Democrats and I go, they've got no choices. They've got nothing. This is the benefit of being a Republican. The principles that we hold produce candidates like we have. So I am just delighted to be a Republican, to know that we have got a great choice ahead of us, and to do our work, to vet the candidates, and to do our part to elect a Republican president in the next term.
You know, when it comes to voting for one of those guys that are running for the Republican Party, we do have some excellent choices this year. We know what Trump's going to give us. You know, Trump may not be the most righteous guy out there, but he did get things done. Our economy was much better. Right now, I think he leads the pack, and I would favor him right now if the vote was today. But I'm going to wait and wait. I'm going to wait and wait until I can vet all of the candidates. I like to give everybody a fair shot. I like to see what they're going to say. I want to see the kinds of things that they'll tell us. I want to see how much they understand the Constitution. For me, if you haven't figured that already, that's a big thing. Understanding the Constitution. Most of our presidents haven't understood the Constitution very well. Trump was learning the Constitution. He didn't know the Constitution very well. If we had a candidate that came out and knew the Constitution really well, I would probably select them.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is going to be the final question prior to closing statements. So the 2nd Congressional District is larger than 14 states in our country. How will you balance the different needs and views of the district, from everything like Air Force issues and military issues in the north and lands issues in the south? Please provide specifics. Jordan, we'll be starting with you.
As someone who has 7th generation roots right here in Davis County, where I was born and raised, and now I live in Washington County, I realize that this district is vast. I've driven it lots of times in the last 2 weeks. I know that the issues are all important to all of us, but the issues are different from north to south. In the south, it's all about water and land and the EPA and the Forest Service and BLM. Up here, you're right. There's a lot of emphasis on the military. Out in Tooele, we've got Dugway. We have to have a representative, one who lives in the district and can represent the district. Another district doesn't need 2 representatives. We deserve our own representative with the talent we have coming from within the district. And number 2, someone who knows the district north to south. I will make you feel like I live in your county. You will see me in your stores, at your farmers markets, in your churches, because that's the job of a representative. I know the district north to south. I've lived in both parts of the district, and I can get the job done representing you.
One thing that I pride myself on from my work in Congress and in the Senate was I was a people person. And those of you who were delegates here tonight, I spoke to you individually and listened to your concerns and answered your questions. One thing that I do really well is I get on the ground and I talk to people and I find out what the issues are that they are facing, and I try to find solutions that we can both find beneficial and help our country. I did that when I worked for Mia Love. I did that when I worked for Senator Risch, for Senator Crapo, and for Cynthia Lummis, the current senator from Wyoming. I am a people person, and I promise you, no one will work harder to knock on doors and find out what is going on in our district. I promise you that.
Two-thirds of the time, I'll probably be in Washington, D.C. doing the people's work. The other third of the time, I'm going to be in the district doing the people's work. That's what Congress people do. That's what we do. That's what has to happen. I've been over this state dozens and dozens of times. I've actually won 5 state conventions as a chairman twice, a national committee man 3 times. That means I had to go to counties, go to Lincoln Day dinners, go to conventions, do all that. The difference will be I'll be going to more city halls, more county commissions, and doing more of that. But that's okay, because the best part of this job, and I know congressmen from states all over the country and senators, the best part of this job is being with you in your district, talking about the issues that are important to you. And I know the issues here as well: land, water, military. I've been an honorary commander at Hill Air Force Base. It's been an important part of that part of
Time's
my
up.
experience as well. Thank you.
For the first part of my life, I grew up here in Bountiful, just up on Orchard Drive. I know some of the issues that everybody faces here and in southern Utah. I've spent the last 15 years in southern Utah. I live in this district. We do need a representative from our district, somebody that's willing to talk to the people. And not just talk to the people, but hear the people. Somebody that will listen. Collectively, you guys are 10 times smarter than me, maybe even 100 times smarter than me. I expect to have lots of interactions with each of you so that I can learn what you want, what's important to you. That's what a good congressman will do. He will come and listen, and then he will act appropriately. Thank you.
I know it's essential that whoever represents this district represents it as one district as a whole. My plan for that, I've been really transparent about from the minute I filed to run. I want to be on the House Natural Resources Committee. That's really important in our district. It's where my natural strengths lie. Water and power issues are important north, south, east, west in our district. I also want to be on the House Armed Services Committee, like Rob Bishop was, because we have Hill Air Force Base, we have the Utah Test and Training Range, we have other military installations in our district and in the state that are really important. And I know those things are really important in Salt Lake and Davis counties. I have the experience to represent the rural areas. I have the experience to represent the urban areas in the north and the south. And I promise you that I would represent the district as a whole, as one district and not in pieces.
All right, we will now conclude with closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for that, and we will go in the opposite direction of opening statements. So Quinn, you will be first, and we will work our way this way.
Well, there are some distinctions. I'm the only candidate on the stage that has focused on the Constitution. That is a very important issue. I think that's the single most important issue. We've had a lot of good people that have gone back to Washington, D.C., and we have a lot of bad bills that have been passed. We've got to have somebody that goes back there with a backbone that will stand up for the Constitution. It's very, very important that we do that. I hope that I can earn your trust and confidence and that you'll send me back there, not for the job, but to be able to represent you as a voice of reason and a voice of principle. We've got to have our principles back. We've got to protect our nation and our liberties for our children's sake. Thank you.
First of all, thank you to the organizers of this event, and thanks to all of you who are showing up to this debate, and thank you to all of you who are delegates who will be making the trek to Delta, Utah on Saturday. It'll be a lot of fun. Listen, I'm a business guy who has dealt with big problems, big issues, and I've found innovative and creative ways to solve those problems and to come up with solutions. I've figured out how to work with people that disagree with me, and people with whom I disagree. And we figure out ways to get things done. That's really what differentiates me. I've been a leader not only in business, but in the political scene, and in nonprofits, and even in Boy Scouts. Listen, that's what it's about. It's leadership. Who can go back there, be a leader, and get things done? Thank you.
Tonight, the big question is, who can have an instant impact in DC when they go back? And out of all of the candidates here on this stage, I have more congressional experience than anybody here. I had worked in both the Senate and the House. I know how both of those chambers work. I know who to go to for answers. I know how to build coalitions and who to talk to solve these problems. Not only that, I have worked with the executive in many different departments, and very few people realize what's coming up. Have any of these candidates worked on the NDAA? They may have. But have they worked on the Farm Bill as well? I don't think they were in Congress at the same time or worked on those issues. These are things that I have worked on and are coming down the pike. Appropriations are coming up too. We all need to know what's going on, and we need someone who can hit the ground running, and I am that candidate. I am for Utah, for you.
You know, Article 1 spells out very clearly what the role of Congress is. I feel like Congress has gotten away from that role. They've abdicated their power to the executive branch agencies, and they're not holding them accountable through the power of the purse. I also believe that the 10th Amendment is important. Most of our issues should be solved here at the state level, and even more than that, at our local levels. Congress needs to get back to doing what it was designed to do, and not doing the things that it was not designed to do. I understand the proper role of government. I combine that with my experience actually crafting innovative conservative policy at the national level, across the country, and here in Utah. I also feel like a state that has the average age of a Utahn at 31 years old needs to elect a representative that the next generation can look to as an example, look to communicate conservatism, because a lot of people want to say that conservatism in America is dead. I'm here to say that it will last for generation after generation if we elect people who can engage the next generation, get them involved standing for conservative principles. Thank you.
I'm not the most experienced debater on this stage, but the good news is you're not hiring somebody to debate. You're hiring somebody to represent this district, and it needs to be somebody who's comfortable in Washington City, Utah, in West Valley City, Utah, and in Washington, D.C. I don't have a voting record, but I have a track record, and I've already proven that I can do that. I know a little bit about what this job takes. You've got to be willing to fly back and forth a lot. You've got to consider Utah home, but be willing to spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. I know I can do that. You've got to be willing to listen to the people in the 2nd District and make your priorities my priorities. I already know I can do that. I have the vote of confidence of 2 members of Congress, Rob Bishop and Congressman Chris Stewart, and it's because they've seen me work. And I want to show you all how I can work and represent you and make sure that you know that the things you care about are being represented well in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
So real quickly, to all of you who are delegates, a little bit of a reminder. Saturday, Delta, Utah is the place to be. We're going to have a lot of fun. Credentialing begins at 1 p.m. You'll have a chance to meet all of the delegates in their booth space until 3 p.m., and then we will be beginning the special election process at 3 p.m. So this is at the high school in Delta. Please, please be there. All of you delegates online as well, we look forward to seeing you in person. Now, please join me with a round of applause. We're going to also invite all of the other candidates out for a group picture. And we've been told that you guys wanted to do that and the county parties wanted to do that. I want to thank all of the media who came out to cover this. We appreciate you. Glenn Mills, thank you for the partnership from ABC4. We appreciate it.
Just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today. Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.
Everybody in the audience too, if you'd like to meet with any of the candidates after these photos, they will be going back out to the Commons area for a few minutes. So feel free to mingle with them.